Do you enjoy Exanima? What if I told you you didn't have to? Hellmode is a comprehensive overhaul of Exanima's level layout, enemies, and overall survivability. Developed over 4 years by a small collection of emotional terrorists, this mod proves that it's not a crime against humanity if you just do it to gamers. But is Hellmode, this assortment of expertly crafted environments and newly engineered assets, the real subject of this video? You know me better than that. I posit instead that Hellmode is nothing but a vessel, a reflection of humanity's Oedipian aversion to self-fulfillment, a treatise on our yearning to unearth a wellspring of joy and then turn around and in it. I ask you, look outside, take a quick scroll down Internet Boulevard, read a newspaper if your stepmom took away your phone again, and you tell me that life itself doesn't come with Hellmode pre-installed. As you likely saw in the title, or in one of my artistically perfect thumbnails, I was allowed access to a few members of Hellmode's development team. As you can imagine, this was a dire miscalculation on their part, and the following includes much of the audio that I was able to get before they realized their mistake. I bid them a massive thank you, and my sincerest apologies. Please enjoy, and if possible, support the project. Thank you both so much for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourselves and say how you came to work on Hellmode?
Yeah, my name is Jonathan, and I guess everything started like 3 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, it was July 2021 was when you first had messages with Konrax, apparently.
Exactly. And before that, I did obviously play Exanima a lot, but and I had a bunch of funny ideas by myself that I wanted to mess around with the files and see what I could do. Most of the stuff I did was to hex editing, and that's kind of...
Yeah. And this is one of the first things I ever saw you do. This picture right here, and I was like, holy crap, that's amazing.
It was like looking at one of Mozart's first compositions, if instead of an andante and an allegro, he composed anguish and getting hit in the head by a zombie wielding a stick of wood. As you can likely tell already, this was a classic team-up for game development. The most boisterous Swede that Scandinavia has ever produced, and one single woman to hold the entire project together at its seams.
I'm Abriane. I've been working on it pretty much around the beginning, but I wouldn't say since July 2021. Jonathan and Konrax were working on it a lot. Before I was involved, I became involved after I was a bit more interested in it, I guess. I mean, it was all stuff happening in the council Discord, so I couldn't not be interested in it. I wanted to help with, I guess, the distribution of what Jonathan and Konrax were doing.
Konrax, I should mention, is another original developer of Hellmode who was not able to attend this interview, either because he was too busy, or because he's currently serving 8 to 12 years in federal prison. He wasn't present to say which it was, so I guess we'll never know. Nah, I'm just playing. Konrax and I actually have spoken via the shameful medium of Reddit DMs. Right when this video was almost finished, he commented on a post I made out of nowhere, and gave me a slew of new information that I was unable to squeeze into my already perfect script. I will recount his contributions at the end of this video so that they are reserved for the chosen few consumers that still have respectable attention spans. Thanks to Abriane, the dedicated Discord hosts the installation guide and many troubleshooting tips for Hellmode. It also gathers together some of the greatest minds in computer science today.
I think I found more interest in modding the game than actually playing it at a certain point. I started just documenting a ton of stuff. I made like the table of items spreadsheet, kind of just managed the modding Discord a bit. This was during a time when I didn't really own the Discord either. It was owned by Corpus.
Corpus, I should say, is the creator of the Hellmode Discord. I do not have any audio with him, either because I didn't ask him for an interview, or because he's currently serving 8 to 12 years in federal prison. I didn't ask him which it was, so I guess we'll never know.
Originally, it was very, secretive. and the Discord was invite only. I took it upon myself to basically be the one super interested in Exanima modding, and invited all the people who I thought would also be interested in it. That's really all the original, like, conserver and wizard roles on the Discord is people I thought were interested in modding.
These wunderkinds of our time serve the purpose of suggesting new content for Hellmode, reporting current bugs, and lying to new players about how to solve the puzzles. Truly, a modern agora. While the technical difficulties inherent to Exanima's base game remain, Hellmode itself brought absolutely no new bugs to my playthrough, even with all the added accoutrements like a fully simulated intro battle that now plays behind the main menu. Further, the bugs I did run into already had fixes hosted in the Discord. There were even solutions to problems I've had since the last patch, all collected in one place by my fellow Exanimites. But enough about the community. As I've always said, who gives a shit about the fans? It's time we dive into this Lovecraftian nightmare, dorky haircut first. Hellmode makes extensive changes to Exanima's level geography, making some sections more linear. The maze in level 1 has been entirely cut, which elicited joy that I haven't felt since they killed Bin Laden, and I knew I'd finally gotten away with it. What used to be a teeth-clenching test of your cartography skills is now instead a simple, relaxing gauntlet of suffering, meeting you with 11 cleaver-wielding tweakers where there used to be 2.
The original vision was just like lots of enemies, lots of fighting, like for basically the fun of it, and it didn't really have too much thought to it. It would just be revamping the levels with like obstacles and lots of fun fights.
I think I sent Konrax a bunch of saves that I made, like edited the enemies, but like a very small version of Hellmode, like before it even was Hellmode. And he played them on stream and he said, let's add more.
We wanted to create a maze level for some things that didn't end up panning out very well. We wanted to like change the entrance to the maze to like lead downward beneath level 1 and then go back up. And that this maze level was really only called that. It wasn't really a maze. It was going to be more like a kind of trapped gauntlet.
But it was really silly.
The reason why we haven't added it back is because editing those levels again, when we do have eventual plans to just rebuild Hellmode levels 1 through 3 on the newer versions of the maps, it's a bit annoying.
I'm excited to hear that more content is planned. In the meantime, I had to use every wrinkle in my brain hole to best what is there already. My quick thinking and strategic prowess serve as proof that my 3rd grade English teacher was wrong on 2 counts. I did comprehend Sun Tzu's Art of War, and Robitussin does allow me to understand Mandarin. How about that, Mr. Papadopoulos? Huh? Now who's a failure? Now who's having a seizure at the fall production of Anne Frank? Old grudges aside, I wanted to chat about the new additions to the NPC roster of Hellmode. Playing as the Unknown, you will come upon a friendly bag of bones just a little ways into level 1. He's an ally, a confidant, and a giving lover. But I was surprised to learn that, to the mod team, he was incomplete.
I will say that we do want a skeleton companion with a lot more character development. It's just, the thing with him right now is it's kind of temporary. It'd be in a different location, and he has a bit of lore attached to him as well. You'd find him like actually through the maze that we haven't added back yet.
Interestingly, when creating new NPCs to follow the player, the Hellmode team essentially copies and pastes Darren's behavior, minus all that extra chit-chat. But I had to know, if it became possible for them to modify the follower AI more delicately, what would they change? What would they add?
That is a whole can of worms, because Maddock is working on a lot of stuff like that, but I honestly don't know half of what the specifics are that he's working on. Because he's working on revamping the roles system, almost in its entirety. Creating a foundation for all kinds of possible AI behavior.
Maddock, I should mention, is a developer of Exanima and is semi-active in the Hellmode Discord to provide advice and praise to its contributors. He did not participate in this interview, either because he was busy, or...
Skeletons don't talk. He's not a talking skeleton. But he, would have a sort of quest and stuff. You bring him to a certain area, then something happens, or if you bring him to certain people, then he has certain reactions. honestly stuff that Bare Metal intends to do with their own NPCs already, that we wanted to do, that we lacked the ability to.
Throughout our interview, a single refrain came up more than once: the need for updated mod tools. Let's put a pin in that one for now, and circle back at a later juncture. I look forward to having more ways to interact with my companion, but I guess I'll settle for our current relationship, where he hits me directly on the back when I really need him to clutch the fight, and I abandon him to a horde of angry peasants to make a quick getaway. Speaking of hordes, that's what Hellmode is all about. There isn't an honorable 1v1 to be had in this entire dungeon, not unless you skillfully craft it by abusing the aggro range. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the final room of level 1, where casting Mind Sense makes the place light up like the rich kid's house on Christmas. When fighting 10 enemies in a row, the mind wanders, and mine wanted to know why they left it at such a reasonable number.
It was, I guess, like a limitation with how the game performed as well, like going over 10 at that time.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's why we settled on that as well.
As game versions improved, we generally could add more enemies.
Yeah, it's much better now.
What excellent news for those of us who are good at the game and not selectively using the footage where I didn't get folded like a French napkin. But maximizing quantity has not limited the team in the quality of the enemies they've produced. For example, the Red Knight is an optional boss at the very end of level 1, and in my first draft of this script, I describe him as, this dog-aid piece of hospital garbage, which I now realize I plagiarized from my therapist's session notes. This devious bastard and his two-handed mace ended my first run right before I made it to the second floor, so I wanted to say thanks to the team for adding this wonderful content to the game. I always wondered if it was possible to grow hemorrhoids on top of hemorrhoids. Why don't I let the whole mod team write the letter to my landlord, explaining the laptop-shaped hole in my ceiling? As you can see, I couldn't let these two escape without answering for their crimes.
I think Red Knight is such a cool boss. And I also like the fact that Jonathan put the old Red Knight in one of the caskets.
Yeah.
There were only two because Jonathan updated him with new clothes and whatnot. Probably at Konrax's suggestion.
Yeah, they did add a new leather set to the game at that point. So we kind of decided to just
throw the old guy in a casket.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite Easter eggs on that level. For Red Knight himself, he kind of does have a bit of a story, but it's he's just another one of the necromancer's pawns.
Well, I don't know much about chess, but after a couple good blows to the body, this little pawn is going exactly where all the other pieces are. Up my end. Quick tip from a veteran gamer, by the way. If you want what's in this room enough to let out the ogre that is guarding it, try running him back up to the underground cave where you can lock him in with the other two NPCs and loot the room with less than an inch of life left for level 2. Remember when I said that this mod made sections of the game more linear? Well, shove that right up your bean spout, because level 2 is as labyrinthian as it's ever been, only now it includes twice as many locked doors. For further tension building, a dagger-wielding child jumped out of a dark corner to fillet my hamstrings. Even more horrifying, he got up, and I had to keep hitting him to keep him down. Only after the battle did I find out that he was not a child, but rather a little person, and that's when I felt bad about it. So as we continue on to the second floor, it's clear that everyone there barricaded their rooms for some kind of oncoming assault. It's also clear that has failed to keep out a band of merry dwarves and a man who I assume is their pimp. Was this based on anything from your real lives?
Yes.
No.
And cut. Nah, I'm just being a little scamp about it. But I was interested in why some NPCs now recovered from their first death.
To answer that, they are human. They are not undead. And humans get up when they are KO'd, just like Darren. And, okay. The pimp is cool, dude.
Nah, I'm just being a little scamp again.
Like a person from the Discord server.
There's a bunch of people from the community that were added as small cameos.
That begs the question, who else is a reference in the game?
It's him, it's one
there's
called
Mad. Yeah, he went through level 1 with a pestle, so we gave him a special character. He died to Mathis. He was fighting Mathis, the dagger skeleton, with a pestle. Konrax had his own corpse as well. It was right before the maze. He said something about not trusting Darren.
It's nice to know I won't be the only one whose corpse stinks up the dungeons of Hellmode. But one place I won't be stinking up anymore is level 2, because after finally getting my hands on a map, I was able to find the one exit that was not locked away. Unfortunately, this exit is a highway to Bone Town, and the populace has changed a little since my last visit.
The shadow skeletons are so cool.
Yeah. It was basically an accident at the beginning. They had like a different look to them, like the first time we added them, but that was like a shader thing that got patched, but...
Oh yeah, they used to like kind of glitch out of existence a lot more.
Yeah,
but...
that specific shader that we added had like, when they moved, then the actual body could be seen. It got patched out because it was actually a bug that Maddock talked about, I think.
Now it's a little different. I think whenever they get blood on them, the limb that has blood on it turns invisible. It's all just like buggy stuff, but I love the shadow skeletons. They're one of the coolest enemies in Hellmode, in my opinion.
I had seen Abriane on the Discord saying that she had a future goal for these shadow skeletons, that eventually the player would simply be met by weapons controlled by floating clouds. How fun!
Yeah, it's a bit of a retroactive goal that I would totally love to see like some application for. It's like they'd be, in practice, they'd be poltergeists manipulating ashes. So they'd be like these sort of clouds of dust that are moving weapons around and stuff.
Abriane and Jonathan are not the only people who want to see updates to Hellmode, but at this point, the onus falls to Bare Metal and the Exanima team to supply the raw materials, the mod tools. Due to their dereliction of duty on this front, I knew I would have to cut around a lot of bad-mouthing and creative ethnic insults based on Bare Metal's British lineage. When I listened back to the interview, turns out all that was just me. So, in a previous video, I referred to the level 5 sewers as the Catacombs. This, I admit, was an honest mistake, and therefore unforgivable. Rest assured, I have severed my left pinky and washed my front door in blood to maintain honor and lower my property taxes. The true catacombs are these tombs, which, thanks to Hellmode, now house much more content to explore, not to mention chasms into which your skeleton companion can plummet. Twice. After losing my main squeeze, I began experimenting with the loyalty spell, which is how I learned that it no longer functions as advertised. Now, nothing will stop an enemy's rage once they've set eyes upon you. The most that loyalty will do is buy time, where the enemy stands there, waiting for you to make one wrong move so they can resume their crusade. But why are they carrying such hate in their hearts? Have they not been exposed to the wisdom of Dr. Reverend Louis Farrakhan, or is it something more?
Jonathan, would you like to answer that question? And after you give your answer, I'll give mine.
I mean, I guess there's two ways you can see it, but if you go through like how the game works and the stats for them that we actually put in to make them aggressive, like we set their mind to be like super aggressive, and as soon as you do loyalty on them, it breaks that whole system a little bit.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I had to run around and hit them, or like specifically one character, and then go out of the game, unpack the character's file, and find the numbers. Then you have to paste those in on every enemy on the level, like in their mind.
Jesus.
You did more than just...
Yeah, you have to reverse it as well to like tell like everybody else to like each other and all that.
Honestly, this was my job. Doing all the finagling, getting everyone to like each other and getting everyone to hate each other. The right people, that is. Additionally, like, what I was trying to get you to mention, Jonathan, was the fact that you basically beat up the same zombie for like hours to get the supreme hate value. So that we could paste that onto every enemy that hates the player. Like, you tortured me for hours.
While losing its main functionality, I found that the loyalty spell actually gains another. Like Throw, it has an effectively infinite range, and while an enemy may not become your loyal follower, they will quickly come to you in hopes for a quick kiss on the mouth. This allows you to lead single enemies away from larger groups, dealing with them on your own terms. Alternatively, you can run straight in, aggroing all of them, and then get your ass beat into a black screen. Just to jump off that point of being tortured for hours, I put my next few questions into a short video here, and I'd love to get some insight from you both.
Oh, wait, I see. Oh no, you died. I love Joey Purp's soundtrack. It's so good. Okay. What we wanted to happen for most cases is you meet them and they switch roles. They switch roles to like their roaming one. But it just didn't work. And this was a quirk with the vanilla game too. When I say wait role, I'm referring to the role system. Like, roles are these things that characters have that determine like scripted behaviors to an extent. So all of these enemies in King's Arena have the skeleton wait role. They probably don't have that role, but I'm just giving you an example. And that role in vanilla is supposed to, once you encounter them, switch to just a regular skeleton role. And that regular skeleton role would roam around when encountered. So like they have specifically a change role command. But that change role command doesn't work because of like a very simple error that can be fixed. Bare Metal never noticed it until I pointed it out. So, whenever you woke up, they were still waiting. The reason that probably happened is definitely some unintentional behavior.
That's exactly what I'd call it. After fighting all the way back through the catacombs, it was time to get to the warm, safe hands of the castle's third floor. As welcoming as ever, this level introduces you to a fun new playstyle known as Primal Fear. I spent much of this level debating the merits of cowardice with the inside of a dimly lit closet, while a roided up cryptid waited outside for me to come within pancaking range. In my solitude, I had little to do except wonder exactly how many of these creatures I would come across in my Hellmode adventure.
There's a couple. There's 5? 6 stars in total? Or is it even more?
Editor's note: it's more! As you can imagine, Level 3 offers no familiarity to a returning player. The amount of clutter and new environmental storytelling is staggering, in that I'm f***ing falling over it again. However, where there is an obstacle for me, there is likewise an obstacle for my enemies. Or not, and I'm about to learn a valuable lesson about physics simulation. If you're wondering, yes, the same places that have secret loot in the base game have new, cooler, secreter loot in Hellmode. The third level also has more locked doors for your enjoyment, so hey, cheers to that. I'd like to say that I struggled here as much as on level 2 navigating around them, but having played for so long at this point, I felt like the mod team and I were melding minds. We were becoming one shared consciousness, where I received insights into game design that led me to the right keys, and they gained an erotic fixation on Geronimo Stilton. Again, I'm very sorry about that, you guys. All that is to say, I knew exactly where the key to the exit would be, because I knew where it would hurt the most to find. And upon dealing with the guards and taking my revenge on the beast through honorable combat, I'm off to a part of the game that will teach me just how kind the developers have been so far. If it takes years of study to become a mental health professional, it took me half an hour in the archives to become a mental health casual. The post-portal pain simulator introduces a catalog of new foes, prompting you to fill your light padded cloth leggings with hot brown diarrhea. But if you keep your nerves and sphincter tight, you'll find that even a zombie on fire forgets to block his knees. With greater challenge comes better tools to face it with, And alongside adding a series of brand new unique weapons to the game, Hellmode also redistributes the wealth of existing weapons. In an honorable duel, I bested the wielder of the Flaming Greatsword in his own Colosseum. Both new and old archive equipment now reside in 2 secret rooms, and I will be providing directions to neither of them. My favorite piece of loot in level 4? It's not the armor. It's not the Flaming Greatsword. It's not even my trusty poleaxe. Of all the things this mod added, its greatest triumph is Demian's stewed bean and vegetable potage. Serves 12.
That's basically what I often make as my lunch for work. But it's like, a sort of rewritten version of it. The in-game lore is that a meal like this was sort of prepared on the regular for some of the people working in the archives.
There was nothing for it. I had to know how best to prepare something that sounded so delectable.
Crockpot, minimum cook time 6 hours. And on high. The meat, I may already say this, but the meat goes in during the middle of the cook. That's pretty much all, yeah. It should be ready between 6 to 8 hours on high, but...
Back in the scenic hallways of the archives, you may notice a spot more flesh tendrils than were advertised on the brochure. Many of these struck me as skillful reuses of existing textures, and I would be remiss not to inquire about them further.
I did most of that. It was...
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like kind of an experiment to see just how vile I can make something. There was a lot of copying and pasting and kit bashing. I spent too long on that. I was practically in like a compulsive fugue to finish that. It's not like I did a whole lot of texturing. There are some wall assets that Jonathan made the material for that I reused, but I mostly covered everything up with tentacles. Yeah.
Due to the mod team's diligent efforts, the archives now boast many more hidden pathways to discover. Unfortunately, each one leads into the loving arms of another eldritch horror, so thanks for that one, you guys. As we near the last few levels of Hellmode's added content, it's a good time to circle back on the issues that the mod team faces in reaching their next milestone. It cannot be stressed enough that every change to the behind-the-scenes mechanics of Exanima which Hellmode makes had to be reverse engineered from the game files that were available to the team. At one point, Jonathan sent this photo when I asked how they originally set out to edit levels. It looks like something you'd find on the wall of a public restroom only used by serial killers. With that context, the fact that some levels, such as the Crossroads, are unchanged made perfect sense, and the fact that Abriane, Jonathan, and the rest of the team have finished any levels at all boggles the mind.
I do all of this because I really love Exanima. Like, I really wanted to make something good for the community after it started to become, like, kind of... After modding for the game, after Hellmode started becoming kind of popular, I was like, holy crap, this needs to be, like, better. This needs to be so much better. And it still needs to be so much better, in my opinion.
But, as we've already said so many times, it comes back to mod tools, something which can only come from the bare metal development team. Members of that team are active in the community and even in the Hellmode Discord, and it's no secret that big things are on the way for the main game. If you ask me, bare metal has unintentionally built a following of some of the most talented psychopaths that the gaming community has to offer, and that's coming from me, recording this from inside their walls. Many game developers would sell their grandmother's social security number for this kind of dedication from fans, and Exanima has garnered it naturally. Even now, Abriane and Jonathan are planning far into the future of Hellmode, waiting only for the resources to get them there.
I want the mod to be basically remade with the official mod tools, or content authoring tools, or whatever they'll be called, on the latest versions of the levels. I want the story to be really integrated into it. I want there to be like NPC quests, and I want it to feel like an expansion, sort of. But it won't be an expansion in the sort of anything official that Bare Metal sanctions. I want it to be something that Mata can be like, now that's cool.
I think the same way. I want to basically have full control over it. Like everything we do now or have done has been with a lot of limitations. If we have like the chance to actually go in and do what we want, then we could do something that's finished.
We could basically be only limited by the scope of our ideas at that point. We could create the new levels that we want to create. The environment, for example. Editing terrain, that's something we really, really want to do. Like, it is possible with our current toolage, but it is a pain. Especially for things like Crossroads. That really will need terrain work. And markets, I really wish we could have done more terrain work with it.
There is so much more to discover in this wonderful triumph of human sadism. While I was robbed of my chance at further exploration by the expert right hook of an eldritch beast, you may not be. But the question, dear viewer, is not whether I will return to brave this gauntlet of suffering again. What else am I going to do, read a book? I'd rather kill my... No, the question I pose to you is, do you have what it takes to delve into the core of Hellmode, or at the very least, to find out which of its great dangers will be the last that you see? Before parting, I asked my interviewees to share any final thoughts. You should know that I also encouraged them to use small words and more than a few insults, because, you know, they're speaking to my audience. They didn't, so it falls to me, you worm-like degenerates.
I love Exanima! And your videos are cool, and I know nothing about your fans, but I'm sure they love Exanima too.
Thankfully, I don't know anything about my fans either. And by the grace of God, we're going to keep it that way. What I do know is that I'm excited to see what John and Abriane do next. John is currently working with Konrax on a separate project, putting his level design skills to use, while Abriane runs the Discord and is working on publishing her first book.
It may be no surprise to anyone, but I would love to work more on Exanima stuff. But, I can't say whether or not that'll happen in the future. Yes, making the mod better is definitely a desire of mine. Put a lot of work into it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I just really want to see, the story that I sort of came up with it come to be in people's hands.
And I have to say, that's a desire that I share as well. Not to work with bare metal myself. I think we all know that that bridge has been torched, much like British relations with the EU, thanks to their mid-wit voting base. Alright, that's the last one, I'm sorry. It's a beautiful country. No, I would love to see Abriane, Jonathan, and the other contributors to Hellmode involved in development in some official capacity, given that they've proven their skill already. In the meantime, I will try to prove my own skill, and continue to plummet to my death in the later levels. Such is the way for us Exanimites. And you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. What I would change is the end of this video, because as I teased at the beginning, I have since gained information from Konrax that I would like to share. Before that, I want to clarify, I refer to the Discord in the video as the Hellmode Discord. It is actually much better known as the Modding Discord, link in the description below. Go there, tell them that I sent you. It's vital to my self-esteem that I appear cool and influential to the Exanima modding community. Konrax told me that his idea for Hellmode started as a challenge mode just for himself, because at the time he was streaming Exanima, rushing the markets as a nearly naked 300 style Spartan, as he put it, and that put me at ease that he was a Zack Snyder fan, because I knew that we were both intellectuals. So with the help of other modders, Konrax built that first level of Hellmode and then released it for the community to try. Obviously it blew up, and Konrax and Jonathan cooked up the first version of the mod itself, the kind of complete one as I understand it. Konrax said to me, "I made it my goal to test a player in every way possible." And the ultimate goal for Hellmode, in his words, was to help players grow and give the community the challenge that they wanted once they'd mastered Exanima's base content. He went on to say, if you find yourself struggling on a particular enemy, it's because you haven't mastered how to deal with them yet. With the quantity, frequency, and enemy diversity, I was able to slowly churn players' breaking points and force them to expand their skill set. He made special mention of the Heavy Knights on level 3 in this regard, which apparently people hated when they were first introduced. I couldn't tell you why, but soon people figured out that their helmets were open-faced. and so with a well-placed stab, they became pretty trivial. Once that knowledge was widespread, he says the complaints died off, and that kind of philosophy, where they add in an enemy that's too hard, people figure it out and wind up beating it, and then they up the ante over and over again, that philosophy is the basis for most of Hellmode's changes. The leprechauns, as Konrax calls them, were born when the team thought they could throw the player off by making something look ridiculous and funny, and people would die just trying to figure out what the hell was going on. In the beginning, Konrax continued, he spoke with Matic constantly about how to do what they wanted to do. He says, "We spent so many late nights just running tests and trying various things to fine-tune the experience." And it was Konrax's idea, actually, to, and I am quoting this, but I definitely know what it means, copy the original hex code from the base level files before they generate the level itself to emulate the itemization. Only after they were doing that did they actually figure out where to find the loot table for the levels themselves. Currently, as Jonathan touched on, Konrax and him are working on a game called Black Mountain together. I guess that's the working title. I don't know if that's official yet. Konrax says that it is in the same vein as Hellmode, and they actually have another Hellmode contributor named Joey Perp, who worked on the soundtrack for Hellmode, I believe. He is on the team, he's involved, and that's very cool. Before you go, you'll notice a link to a video on the screen here. This is from Mac Indie, who has created a YouTube slop algorithm and will be competing against it for engagement on the Mac Indie channel. What a much better idea for a channel than mine. Go watch it. Go support the good fight. Me, I'm giving in to the machines, so you can look forward to that. Until then, this has been the B-Man, wishing you a restful Sabbath.